and welcome back to my small little library. In today's video I want to talk all about classics. Mainly because for this year I decided to read more classics, and that gave me the idea to kind of like talk about the classics I've read already, what I thought about them, and yeah, maybe so you could give me some suggestions which classics I might like as well, because I don't really know a lot about classics, to be honest. It's nothing I was really that interested in when I was younger, and so I'm now kind of getting into it more, and also I think I just want to broaden my horizon a little bit, because I'm one of those people that is really stuck in their ways, and so I feel like sometimes I'm way too stuck in my genres, and yeah, reading more classics is a way to try to figure out a little bit else. Like, look what else I might like to read, and also I think they are classics for a reason, so yeah, I just would like to experience them. And I haven't read that many classics, let's just start with that. And I kind of categorized them a little bit, and I will start with ones I'm not sure are technically classics, because they are in the Penguins Classics edition, but I'm not really sure because I don't own those editions. But yeah, we're gonna start with those. And those are pretty much all the H.G. Wells books I've read. I found them all in some kind of a classic book form, but yeah, I'm not too sure about those, but I'm gonna include them because I found them as classics. If you've watched my H.G. Wells video, you will know I've read all of them pretty much one after the other a few months ago. I will link the video at the top of the stream, whichever corner it is, but yeah, so if you're interested in that, you can watch that, and they all got 3 stars except for War of the Worlds, which is a 5-star read for me. And so yeah, sci-fi works for me a lot of the time, so classical sci-fi is something that I seem to enjoy. Sometimes the ideas are a little bit like not modern enough for me, but yeah, they're classics, that's kind of obvious, you know, but yeah, I really enjoyed most of these, or for the most part, and so yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about these, but I think if I want to go more into classics, I don't want to only focus on classic sci-fi, simply because then I would be going into genres I love anyways, and that isn't the thing I want to do with reading classics. So these are a little bit like in brackets, let's just say it like that. Then I have, well, I will finish with my all-time favorite, well, no, I will finish with the classic that has been for the longest in my life. We will continue with the classic I've read last, which is The Divine Comedy. This one is the German copy. I've listened to the audiobook in English, so I haven't actually read this copy, but I own it in German. I really enjoyed The Divine Comedy. I gave it 4 stars. I think this is something I would like to get more into. I'm not a religious person, but I found the ideas really interesting in here, and like reading it as someone who hasn't the faith the book depicts was kind of interesting, I think. I just think I would struggle with it being in verse, which is why I listened to the audiobook, which wasn't in verse. So yeah, I don't think I would want to read classics in verse, just not yet, because I haven't read a lot in that format, and I don't know if I would actually like that, but the story was really interesting, and I think this is one of those really classics which everybody's heard about and which might be really intimidating, and I would definitely have to read it a second time, which also brings me to the fact that one thing I'm afraid about is that maybe I would need to read classics more than once. I definitely feel I will have to read The Divine Comedy another time, just because I don't think I could like grasp it all. So yeah, I would ideally love classics that are easily understandable, if you get what I mean. I don't know, if the language is way too old, as English isn't my first language, that is kind of hard for me. So yeah, that wouldn't be ideal, to be honest, if they're really hard to understand. I have an interesting collection of different classics. One I have The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. I really love Sherlock Holmes. I think the stories are really interesting. I only have this little collection. I still need to get me like a bigger Sherlock Holmes collection, because I think this is one of the one of the most well-known classics, and so yeah, I obviously read a little bit of those. I will definitely also continue to read Sherlock Holmes. I am thinking about buying one of those really big collections that has all of them together. But yeah, detective stories and such, if there are more classics in that direction, please leave them down below, because that would be really interesting for me. Then one I was really surprised about, Peter Pan. I bought this really nice like chalk painting edition. Yeah, this is a really brutal classic, something I also really interested in. So yeah, I might have to pick up a little bit more of those like Disney stories, like all of those classical stories about those characters, because we all know the films of Peter Pan, but yeah, in the book it's all a lot more brutal and there's a lot more violence in there, and so yeah, I kind of really enjoyed that. What is this? Then we have The Catcher in the Rye. I only read this book because my partner had to read it in school in his English courses, and I absolutely despised this book. I couldn't stand it. The self-righteousness of the main character just was too much for me. I know this is one of the books that really like splits people in their opinions, so yeah, that wasn't one for me. Yeah, I definitely want to like not pick up anything that is similar in its story to this one. And then we have one classic that is a horror story. This one I also really loved, so I would really love to read more classical horror. I have some more on my pile down here, which I have I will show you in a minute. But yeah, I do have some more classical horror that I've read, but yeah, I would really love to pick up more classical horror, so I will definitely look into that. If you have some favorites, please leave them down below after you've seen the other ones, because that is something that I'm really interested in, and I think that is probably, other than sci-fi and fantasy, one of the genres that I enjoy the most. But I haven't read that much yet, because when I was younger I was a lot more afraid of horror books. I don't know why, but yeah, it wasn't something that was read in my household, so I have to do a lot of like catch up there. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. I honestly don't like the copy I own, so I might have to pick up another one, but yeah, not the biggest fan of this one. Then we now come to my prettiest classics I own, and these are the cloth-bound Penguin editions. And even though I haven't read a lot of classics, I picked these up because they are just so pretty. I have to say, if I pick up more classics, I will always try to get them first in the cloth-bound edition from Penguin if I can. I enjoy them so much. They're so pretty to look at. And yeah, so let's start with the first, which is A Christmas Carol. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, my dog is playing. But yeah, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is one of those stories where I always really enjoyed the movies, and so I did want to read the original story. and I enjoyed it. It is quite short, as you can see. It's a really, really small book, but I think this is one of the prettiest editions. And yeah, these are stories I definitely enjoy, but I think this one also has like the fantasy aspect in it. So I think it goes kind of into fantasy. So yeah, you will see a lot of the other classics I have here are definitely fantasy. But yeah, really enjoyed that. I might have to pick up more from Charles Dickens. I don't think I have read anything else from him, so yeah. And then the next one I have is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I didn't have to read this in school, so I thought it would be nice to pick it up afterwards, just because there was a lot of talk about George Orwell's books. I do still want to pick up, oh, I've forgotten the name, but his other really popular book. So yeah, I will have to do that at some point. I liked it, I didn't love it. I think it's one of those books, they're important to read, but they're hard to love for me, because they try to teach you something really obviously, you know, it's not like a subtle story, it's a really obvious one. So yeah, but I think it's fine. Also, I like the edition. And then I have the 3 horror classics that are the most well known, which is Dracula, Frankenstein, which this is more like sci-fi horror, and then The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm a really, really big fan of all 3 of these. I would really love to read more classics that go into that direction. I'm comfortable with that direction, but yeah, I'm absolutely in love with these books. Especially Frankenstein was really different than I would have imagined, because in films it's always depicted a little bit different, and I didn't ever know that there was so much of the life of Frankenstein in here, which I thought was really, really interesting. And yeah, it's, I don't know, there are really, really good foundations, so if, I don't know if you've read even less classics than me, I think these are good ones to get into it. With a little bit of a caveat for Dracula. Dracula is, it's really, really, really slow in the beginning. My best friend couldn't get through the beginning. I personally love like travel descriptions, so for me that wasn't a problem. But yeah, the beginning is really, really slow in Dracula, but it really pays out in the end for me personally. So yeah, if you want to get started into classics, I would say pick these 2 up, Frankenstein and The Picture of Dorian Gray. I think these are 2 really, really good starters. But yeah, if you love horror, I think you should read Dracula. It's just, yeah, it's a fantastic book. Then one I don't have here because I don't own the physical book, but actually really, really loved is The Secret Garden. I will put the cover here. I think that is the most like normal fiction book, like contemporary, I've ever read, and I absolutely loved it. I have no idea why, I can't really tell you why, but the story really kind of touched me, to be honest. And yeah, I definitely will pick that up as a physical book at some point, just because I enjoyed it so much. But I read it as an ebook from my library, because it was it didn't cost anything, so I thought, why not try it? And yeah, I really love it, which I would love to read more in that direction. So if you know anything in that direction, leave that down below as well. Now we're coming to the last one, which I think this is the classic that has been in my life the most. And I actually own 3 editions of it. So the 2 English editions I own are pretty much the normal Penguin edition, which back in the day was like the one you could get in Germany. And then I also own the cloth-bound edition in it, which this one has both stories in there, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, which this was the first time I've ever read Through the Looking Glass, which was really interesting. But yeah, this was a childhood favorite of mine. I absolutely love the movies. I really love the books. It's I don't know, ever since I've read it, I felt a lot like Alice when I was younger, with the problem of not fitting in and always being in your head. So I don't know, I think as a child I really I really saw myself in Alice. And the last edition that I own of the book is actually a really old German edition. It is taped with red electrical tape, I think. This actually is the version my mother owned, and she actually gifted it to me when I moved out from home, just because she knew how much I loved the book. And yeah, I'm really happy to own my mother's edition of the book. My mother isn't the biggest reader, so for her to have kept one of her books such a long time is a really rare thing, and this is, I think, one of my most cherished books in my collection, even though the it's not in the best condition, but I don't mind, to be honest. I just love that it's a gifted book from my mother to me, and it's a book she loved and it's a book I love. And so yeah, I actually read a different German edition back in the day. I don't own that one anymore. I think it got lost when I moved out from home. So yeah, I've actually never read this one, just because I'm a little bit afraid that it will break. But yeah, I think it's a really special edition. And I don't know how you stand to the story of Alice in Wonderland, but I don't know. I have the Cheshire Cat tattooed on my shoulder. It was the first tattoo I've ever got, and I actually did well, sort of a cosplay, but it was for Halloween, of like the Dark Alice of the video game. Oh, I don't know how it's called. I will put it up on screen somewhere, which is like really dark, distorted version of Alice in Wonderland, which I really loved, the video game. And so yeah, I had a lot of looks that were going in the Alice in Wonderland direction, and yeah, I think it's just the classic that has been with me the longest, so it's the one I cherish most, even though I do definitely think that Frankenstein and Dracula are better books if you look at it. But yeah, so this is my small but really cherished collection of classics, and yeah, I would be really interested, which classics would you recommend for me, and which are your favorite classics maybe? And yeah, I would love it if you leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!